Okay, ready. Hello, this is Sue Rose, the Climate Change Program Manager with the Institute for Tribal Environmental Professionals at Northern Arizona University. Thank you for joining the webinar. This webinar will provide an overview of the funding opportunity that was recently announced by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Please type any questions you have into the question box on the right side of your screen. After the presentation, the presenters will address the written questions. And following the webinar, you'll receive a link to a short online evaluation form. Please take a few minutes to provide feedback and suggestions of topics for future webinars. This webinar is being recorded, and we plan to post the presentation and webinar recording on ITEP's Climate Change Webinars webpage. The webinar is being offered by the Institute for Tribal Environmental Professionals and the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And here is the contact information for ITEP's climate change staff. Our program offers climate change trainings, webinars, a tribal climate change newsletter, the Tribes and Climate Change website, and much more. I encourage you to visit our Climate Change Program website at the URL on this slide, and feel free to contact me or Nikki or Karen if you have any questions about ITEP. I'm very pleased to have Sean Hart and Rachel Novak with us for the webinar. Sean is the National Climate Change Coordinator, and Rachel Novak works with him. She is the BIA's Climate Science Coordinator. And with that, I will turn it over to Rachel and Sean.
Okay, thanks very much, Sue. And just to confirm, Sue, since you're not muted, can you hear us fine?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thanks, Sue. Okay, I appreciate everybody tuning in for this. So you know that we have our solicitation out on the street, and it closes May 23rd, so we wanted to sort of answer questions. A lot of people have been emailing questions into the funding.climate.bia.gov or at bia.gov website, and we've accumulated them here, but it's easier to talk to all you guys at once. So we're going to do, you know, it's formal because it's all structured on how you ask questions, but we'll do sort of an informal overview, some frequently asked questions that we've gotten already and that we've had in the past, and then we'll start answering your chat box questions. So just a reminder that the climate initiative, you know, this funding is to support, it's activities to support managers to make decisions and consider climate change in their projects. So it's not an implementation program. It's really designed to leverage the program budgets that we all have. So, you know, our $10 million gives us information and tools for managers and engagement, and then they adjust their projects with climate change considerations in mind. So, with that, oops, I'm on the wrong screen. So just as a reminder, if you were thinking about it, starting to integrate climate change into your world, you know, initially you'd start with strategic planning, which is done without vulnerability assessments, not a lot of detail. It's sort of a high-level view. So tribal strategic plan, and that's part of our support. That sort of engages all the programs, gets everybody sort of realizing what data and tools they need to put more effort into. And it's leadership's intent that says, you know, we're all going to launch together. So that's the way normally you'd start it. Then you'd attack it through getting more information from, you know, what's available for your region and potentially vulnerability assessments for your particular resource of concern, working with other people who are in the same ecosystem or have same issues, data and tools that you would need to work on to be able to incorporate this information into your regular planning. And then you'd move into programmatic plans, which is outside our funding stream, but that's where your programs would take over and start saying, you know, what are, you know, we know what our vulnerabilities are, we know that the council wants us to address this. And we've identified in our plans, in programmatic plans, you identify sort of the suite of management tools where you're going to invest your money and time to adjust your projects. Implementation, that's the projects you're already doing, as you incorporate these new ideas. The monitoring and then reevaluation, and start the cycle again. And in the center there that shows sort of tribal capacity, we need to boost our ability to address these things. We have to give managers an idea of what management tools work for them. That's sort of that pure science side, the vulnerability assessment side. So that's the support for going to training. That's your staff, hiring staff to help the strategic plan. And I put youth in there. That's, filling the pipeline for the people that are going to follow you when you move on. So an overview of all the things we do, not just the funding side. So in funding, you've got that Dear Tribal Leader letter announcement. It talks about training, Category 1 training. That's tribal design, deliver. Lately it's been regional stuff. Somebody could propose a national program. We've funded those in the past before, training. Adaptation planning, strategic planning, vulnerability assessments, some limited monitoring, travel support, and internships. On the technical side, we're also working to get other federal agencies that have data or skills or tools, make that available to tribes. We have the ITEP National Training Sessions for Climate Adaptation. We've launched our web portal, and so we have different web tools that are available. I'll hit those in another slide. And then on our expert side, we're in the middle of a solicitation to get tribal organizations to hire tribal climate science liaisons to help deliver the information that tribes need help with planning. And we have GIS technical specialists who working with us on both our web stuff and soon to be GIS layers, maybe in the fall, to help interpret those. So these are competitive awards. I just mentioned before, strategic planning, vulnerability assessments, supplemental monitoring, and that means, when I say supplemental monitoring, it's what's the climate piece you need. So programs usually have an inventory, they do monitoring. That's not the part we're covering. We're covering the part that no one considered in the past, a trend or looking for an indicator, research for an indicator that would help you make decisions. So it's not baseline monitoring or not more frequent monitoring unless you figured out what an indicator is. So it's to supplement, to figure out trends, the stuff your program hadn't done in the past. Training, that's that design deliver. Usually it's been regional workshops where you bring in a CSC, Climate Science Center, or other scientists that understand what's going on in that ecosystem and help managers make decisions on how to think about climate and what their treatments might be, and capacity building. So that's both maybe a staff member to help with the adaptation planning or travel support to go to meetings. And then we have the youth awards. That's research internships. If you happen to have a tribal college or relationship with a university, help somebody who's already in school to start studying climate, hopefully that applies to the reservation. Program internships, that's where a program's going to absorb, take on a research or an intern, but you got to write down, how that'll be tied to climate. So are they going to do that literature search and figure out what management tools, are you going to assign them to that? Yeah, they can still do some of your regular work and learn what your program is, but they have to have a significant portion be climate related. So that's maybe going out to get information or doing some of that monitoring to figure out what trends you should be tracking, doing some analysis, that kind of stuff. So, ocean and coastal management, this is 20% of our funding, $2 million a year. It doesn't have to be climate related. It can be. Most of the time it is. But this is a little outside the box for some people who have regular ocean management responsibilities that are unrelated to climate. So it's very much the same. It's planning, training, vulnerability assessments, monitoring, and then travel support. But the priority, the reason this money was put into the budget is to support regional ocean planning, and that's this cooperative, all federal, state, tribal partners get together. The Northeast just finished it. The Mid-Atlantic's finishing up their plans. You could look online to see what they do, but the Pacific is just getting ramped up. So the travel support, the priority is to support going to that regional planning body, and if those aren't fully operational or they don't get fully subscribed, then it goes to other regional planning tribes getting together to decide what issues they're going to address with the regional planning body, or then ocean management planning. So that's one for coastal tribes that just remember it doesn't have to be climate related. So I'm going to hand this over to Rachel for a minute to talk about other things we're working on.
Thanks, John. Hi, this is Rachel Novak. I'm the Climate Science Coordinator over here in the Tribal Climate Resilience Program. I'm just going to go over 3 additional items that might interest folks. One of these is NCA, Input Coordination. The NCA is the National Climate Assessment. The 4th National Climate Assessment is going to be finalized in 2018. And so this year we are helping the U.S. Global Change Research Program really get the word out to tribes, and are working with a few partners right now and trying to engage tribes so that there's a better voice, an even stronger voice than the last, the 3rd National Climate Assessment, so that the information in there can be helpful for tribes in thinking about climate change and their programs and their planning and their mitigation activities. So we are working with, in particular, the different tribal colleges and universities, TCUs, to really help coordinate that input. So there will be some more information that we'll try to get the word out in the coming months to support that effort. We also are working with the Cooperative Ecosystem Studies Unit, CESUs. That is a very large umbrella cooperative agreement, and the federal agencies are partners, and institutions, traditional institutions like colleges and universities, as well as tribal colleges and universities, TCUs, and tribes can be members of these. There are 17 units within this large cooperative ecosystem studies cooperative agreement, and each of these has their own kind of sub-cooperative agreement. So that already exists, so it makes it really easy if different federal agencies that are partners, like BIA or BLM or the Forest Service, the National Park Service, if they want to work with one of these partner institutions to conduct research that's natural resource, ecosystem studies related. And this goes from A to Z, so anthropology all the way down to zoology. There are lots of different disciplines, different sorts of studies that can be supported under these cooperative agreements. So it's great. It's a great mechanism, we think, because it can really reduce some of the administrative load of having to create cooperative agreements whenever we want to work with an institution. And it also comes with an attractive indirect cost rate at 17.5%. As many of you might know, many of these institutions often have indirect cost rates, upwards of 50%. So this really, this membership or partnership in this CESU system allows federal agencies like the BIA that are partners to access this expertise and put more of these into projects. So we are trying to encourage TCUs to become members. Tribes can become members. In light of the climate awards here, an interesting mechanism and way that a tribe might be able to take advantage of BIA's partnership, existing partnership in these CESUs, is if you wanted to partner with one of these institutions, for example, maybe your local TCU if they are a member a partner within the CESU, and you can see a map on here, there's 17. If they're a partner, the tribe could request, if they're awarded funding, they could request that that portion go directly to that TCU from the BIA, and we could take advantage of that, our partnership in that CESU, or to another institution as well. So we're really trying to let folks know about the potential for partnerships and accessing more expertise in climate science realms, and even outside climate. Our partnership in the CESUs extends to all of the BIA divisions, not just our climate program. So we are actually giving another webinar tomorrow geared more at TCUs and CESU membership, so I encourage you to join. And if you have any questions on that, just feel free to email me or Sean, and we can get you the details to take part in that. We wanted to plug our climate change photo contest. It's through K through 12. It's had growing success from its humble initial stages, and we are getting more and more submittals every round. So we have the April 30th spring contest, and those coming up, and those are due in April 30th, and then we have a fall or a summer contest as well, and those submissions are due on the 26th. So this is pretty minimal in terms of what needs to happen. A student could use a classroom or cell phone camera and take a picture of something in their community value and that could be impacted by climate change. Put a caption on there, submit it by email, and that's their submittal. It can be, it's just a pretty easy process. So there are 3 different categories: K through 5, 6th through 8th grade, and then high school, 9th through 12th grade. We've been able to hang some of the past award-winning photographs here in the halls of BIA, and it's brightened our workplace here. And the students also get a certificate and a framed photo of their entry as well as their winners. So I encourage you to let your science teachers or your photography teachers, your art teachers in your schools know about this opportunity to engage your students in climate change and in art through this media. Thanks.
Well, that makes me realize that I forgot to send certificates to the students. I just sent the photos, framed photos. One last highlight, we just launched our resource guide, which is sort of a long list and links of resources available to tribes from any federal agency. So that's this toolkit.climate.gov/tribal. That brings up this page you're seeing here. Then it rolls into our pages, but this is an example of what you would see if you went in there. There's you could even pull up a fact sheet for your tribe. So it says if you have an award or if you posted online a climate adaptation plan, what your local landscape conservation cooperative is. This kind of information to help you, if you get assigned to doing the adaptation plan, this will help you figure out where things are that apply to you, and we're building on that all the time. So I'm ready to launch into the frequently asked questions. So once in a while we get somebody who heard about the application kit and the announcement but doesn't know where it is. So if you look at our website, you can pull it up. And I checked this morning, you can Google BIA.gov climate and it'll bring up the website. So that should get you both to the photo contest, to our resource guide. All our information is up there, but it also has the current application kit. So the more information, the announcement. And on there, it's also got a thing called a cover page, which is not required. It's optional, but that's the information we pull out for our spreadsheet, so we keep track of what your project is, how much BIA money you asked for, and it helps us keep from making mistakes. So if you guys, when you do an application, if you could fill that in for us, it would cut down on our error rate. And some of our error rates we have quite a big panic when we have 101 applications out and we put in the wrong dollar amount for somebody. So If you could add that in, that'd be great. Oops. If you want to submit more than one proposal, how does that work? So you can apply for more than one proposal in more than one category. You can have one resolution that covers all of those. The one exception is Category 9 is for capacity building, and it's designed for a tribe that doesn't really know whether they should go for a vulnerability assessment, climate adaptation planning. They really haven't had time to think about it. It's not a high dollar value award. It's sort of a pre-proposal award. So if you guys haven't thought it through, haven't won in the past, not won, but been awarded in the past, that Category 9 is for you. But otherwise, yeah, multiple categories. If you're submitting a 2 and a 9, well, if you know that you need a 2, then you don't need the 9. You already figured out where you're going and getting an adaptation plan. So, what about one proposal for multiple categories? So, we've done this in the past, but it doesn't work out very well. So, a tribe would say, this one proposal is a combination of 6 things. The problem is that the reviewers are all different panels. Each category is a different panel, and they then have to pick out and rank that proposal based on information they have to sort through. So they have to guess at what was meant for each category. So it didn't seem to work out very well. So break them up so that each one comes in separately. It can have the same tribal resolution. The one thing I want to point out, though, is people say, and maybe I have this in another question, so I'll wait till I get to those. So, when would the funding arrive? How long is the review process? So after we close in 638, we have 90 days to finish the review and get something out. We shoot for 60. We hope it goes a little better than that. But then the funding starts to move, and depending on if you're compact or contract, it moves. For contracts, it moves to the regions. For compacts, it goes to the Office of Self-Governance, and then they have to negotiate with the tribe to put it into the compact. So things don't usually move. September money starts to move, but it doesn't always get down to the tribal program. So I would say if you are planning something, a launch date really isn't reasonable in September. And especially if it's training, you're going to miss all your training if it's over the summer. So sorry about that, but that's sort of the way it comes down. Travel support. What if something changes? So this goes to how late the funding shows up too. You could easily put down the National Adaptation Forum in Minneapolis for whatever it is, May 2017. You could get that one, but other ones, trainings, they haven't been announced yet. So if you put down a training that looks really good and you miss the date, we understand that's going to happen. So you would talk to your regional point of contact, each region has one, and say, I'm going to swap out this climate training for that climate training. As long as it's still climate, you'll get a note back and say that you're good to go. So the regional points of contact, the list of who they all are is on our website. And I asked Margaret to do that this morning, but I forgot to double check with her. So make sure it's on before the end of the day. Can you apply for more money for the same project? So there is a dollar limit per project, and that's what's true in 14 and 15 and FY16. So you can apply. You can't have over $250,000 for a project. If you decide that you're going to keep working on the same project, then you can't go over that limit. So double check what you got awarded the first time and make sure you're under. I would make note of that in the cover letter and the beginning of the application so that we don't think you're doing the same thing. And then you would really want to highlight for the reviewers what's the old work that's already being done and what the new work is, so they can really evaluate what the new work is. So yes, it can happen. If it's a completely new project, then write it up like that. Show what you're building on for a previous award. This is the question I was about to answer earlier. What if you have travel in Category 2? So you're doing adaptation planning, you've got the whole project team, your program managers, and you want them to travel. Do you put it in Category 2, or do you do it in a Category 3, or 5, ocean coastal travel? Do you do it in a proposal for travel or standalone, or in the award? So the way to think about this one is, if you weren't given the award for the adaptation planning, would that staff still need to go to the workshop? And I would argue probably yes. So it could be for an adaptation planning workshop that those people, that fits with adaptation planning, the actual process of doing the plan. But program managers who are going to participate, those workshops, to get them oriented on climate, what their programs need, that's a need whether your tribe gets an award or not. So I would say I would break them up. And the other point to make is that small awards for Category 3 have always been funded. So to a workshop or one meeting is a small award, and we haven't not funded any real climate-oriented awards for staff. So we don't allow international travel, and we don't allow for a landlocked tribe to go to ocean planning. But other than that, it comes down to just, is it climate training? So I would say standalone. If they really need the training, send them to the training. Don't put it into the Category 2 adaptation planning. The cover page that I mentioned earlier, this is a screenshot from our website. It says optional proposal for cover sheet. This is just to help us administratively not make mistakes. So I really, really, really like you to send it in if you're going to do that, so that we make sure all the information you want to give us is correct. Is indirect allowed? Yes, indirect is something you include in the budget request. So I should mention the awards, you get supplemental ranking if you cost share, if you work across boundaries, if information in the vulnerability assessment goes to other partners. The more we can share climate information and support each other, the better off we are. But if you want to get points or get credit for cost share and you don't have another grant to line up against, or the tribe's not kicking in money, don't forget that your staff time, all those program managers that are coming for an adaptation plan or reviewing the vulnerability assessment work of that you farm out to the university, that time, that's tribal money. They're contributing that time. So stick that in as your cost share, or in-kind contribution. Can I get a time extension for the tribal resolution? Yes. We know that getting resolutions can be hard, so we don't have to have the resolution to review the project. We need the resolution to award the project. So we give 30 days extra time for you guys to submit a resolution, but please note that in the cover letter and in the beginning of the proposal that it's coming. And probably put it in the email too, so that we know to check the box that it's coming. One resolution can cover all your proposals, and if your tribe doesn't do resolutions, whatever your tribal governance system is, that's acceptable. But if your tribe does resolutions and you don't have it, then that's the key. So you're going to need it for 638 contracting anyway, so might as well get it in place. The question about the actual time deadline. So the paperwork says Eastern Standard Time and Eastern Daylight Time. The clock is right now running on daylight time, so that's the time. We did want to put Alaska time in, but it got corrected. I assume it was a typo, the Eastern time. And so Alaska, sorry about that. The announcement got moved up on you. So you got to hit the 5 p.m. Eastern time, everybody. That's what we announced. My proposals for a project. So in climate change, the climate change funding, 1 to 3, 6 through 9, we don't fund projects. That's the program's responsibility. So that's the one where you're asking for money to do planning, to learn about tools and climate and how to consider climate. So in category 4, the ocean and coastal planning, that one has room for projects, but in general, the participating in regional planning bodies, doing ocean coastal planning, your inventory and monitoring, that stuff usually takes up all the money. So getting information to managers so they can use their project money, that applies to ocean and coastal, but it's not exclusive. So combining all your programs, actually, it proposals into one. The typo there on the $sign. So into one document. It hasn't worked well in the past. I would make sure that you submit them as separate, but then don't break up a single project into 2 so that you get under the dollar limit. So, the same review teams reviewing them, they're going to read that same text. So, yeah, $250 is the limit for the whole thing. Oh, that one's just a copy of the slide. So actually, that's the end of our frequently asked questions. And so we're ready to take questions from the chat box, or actually, if ITEP would relay them, because our chat box questions have shrunk down and we can't see them.
Okay, Sean, this is Sue. There have been a number of questions. Also, a number of people had noted that the slides weren't changing. I don't think that was true for everyone. I don't know what the technical issue was, but we will be making the presentation available on ITEP's Climate Change Webinars webpage. Okay, the first question is there a formal definition for coastal boundary in Category 4?
There's not, well, there is actually. It's the NOAA definition for coastal. And I know it's written in here. I wrote it a long time ago. Can we have that person type in their email into the chat box so that we can send them something? Because it's the NOAA definition for ocean and coastal, but it turns out that I can't find it right now.
Yeah, we have the info of who typed that in.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, the next one, I'm interested in the webinar for TCUs tomorrow. Where can I get information?
Hey, yeah, you can email me, Rachel Novak, RACHAEL.NOVAK@BIA.gov, and I can email that out. And actually, this is a better idea. I will put it out on the Climate News listserv for everyone after the call. And it's at 2 o'clock Eastern Time tomorrow. It's just 2 to 2:30, so it's not meant to take much time out of folks' days. And it'll provide a brief overview, and you can ask questions at the end. So I will send that out. If you're not on there, feel free to email me. So hopefully most of the folks on here are already on the BIA Climate News listserv.
Okay, some of these questions you may probably already addressed, but I will read them. How long do you anticipate it will take to process travel and youth awards? We need this information to estimate what events can be covered by this program.
Yep, youth, we know that you've missed the summer, and it kills us to say that, and it was true last year. So, yeah, the money won't show up till October. By the way, I did find the ocean and coastal definition. It's 16 USC 1453. But basically, it includes Puget Sound and tidal basins. So yeah, it's got to be ocean influence, but it's not way up the river. So next.
Okay, can a coalition of tribes submit a joint proposal? Are these looked upon more favorably in the selection process?
Yes. So I was mentioning before, anything that we do that that spreads information farther. So yes, there is ranking where coalitions of tribes get more points. So there are some tribes that don't have somebody else in their ecosystem. So the way we've written it is, if you get all the programs in your tribe to go along with, to do climate adaptation and, of course, the resolution. So the whole tribe's on board. You get the same amount of points for cooperation as you do if you do a coalition of tribes for, say, one species vulnerability that crosses, an ecosystem crosses boundaries for other tribes. So a particular cultural species that hits multiple tribes, if it's one species, multiple tribes, it would get ranked the way one tribe, multiple programs would. You'd still get credit. So yes, we encourage that, and they don't all have to be on the, they don't have to write a letter of support. The one tribe will get the money, and actually you could submit multiple tribes to get the money, but we can break it up. But anyway, if in that case you'd have to have a resolution, but you could have tribal letters of support for the other tribes that participate.
Okay, the next question. Should budgets include indirect, or can we assume contract support will be provided if the proposal is awarded?
Indirect, and contract support, that's figured out somewhere else, so it may actually, I don't do 638 contract support stuff, but it may actually double down on you. So, but yes, include indirect, and the other thing is, if you're doing in-kind, make sure you have a line that says what the BIA contribution is. So that includes indirect, so that we can pick it out. Maybe put it in bold.
Next question, does Alaska have set-aside funding since we have the majority of tribes in one state and ANCs?
I'm sure that if this was an open call, the other tribes would talk about acreage and stuff like that. So no, we consider all tribes to have to be government-to-government status, and each has their own issues. So in the 17 budget, there is talk about potential for funding for coastal erosion, and that would be coastal tribes, and so that would actually be sort of a set-aside for tribes that have specific issues with natural hazards. But no, in this case, we do not have that.
Okay, next, can a tribe include personnel wages, insurance, and indirect costs in the category 3, travel support, climate?
No, so travel support, that's direct costs for travel. So we assume that you have a staff person on board and you're sending them out to training, that we're paying for the training, that you would have already had them on staff. You're not hiring them for the 3-hour drive and 6-hour training.
Okay, and is there a points system for awarding grants? If yes, where can I find it?
We had it in this announcement before the solicitor got it, and they took it out. So we're going to have to go. See if we're allowed to release that or allowed to use it. I hadn't thought that through. So that's the way we rank things. But I have to double check with the lawyers.
Okay.
So we'll get that person's email if we could.
Okay. Next, so can you clarify about the training money? For example, if a tribe gets their proposal awarded and the money comes in September, but the program manager attends a training that happens in August and pays out of pocket, can they be reimbursed once the grant is received, or is it strictly limited to after receiving the grant?
So the way I understand it, the way it works, and I would double check with your tribal self-governance coordinator, but once the award is announced and the tribe gets the letter saying it's been awarded, that, I believe, is the start date, but you should check because it could be that it's the day the contract is signed by the tribe. Either way, that occurs before the cash shows up. So I would double check with your tribal administrators and get confirmation because you don't want to make a mistake on this one. But I think there's more room, and it depends on your tribe if they'll let you go before the cash gets there with just the documents are signed. Some tribes do.
Okay, is there any international travel consideration made for tribes that have transboundary resource concerns? For example, climate change impacts on international watershed restoration.
There has not been, so it doesn't mean we wouldn't think to put it in the future, but we have no international travel in this because there was, early on, there was a lot of requests for international travel, and we had a lot of tribes that weren't funded, and we still do. So we'll take it into consideration for next year's awards and maybe refine that restriction.
Okay, what is the time frame? Can I put in for 2 years, 3 years?
Yes, you can put in for 2 and 3 years, and actually when we had very little money, people would put in years and they would give us option years. So they would say, you know, if you're unable to fund all the proposal, then we'll take, and they would say this in the award, in the cover letter and the proposal, we'll take funding on a 1-year basis. And that would only matter if you were sort of on the bubble, the last funded tribe in the list, and we didn't have enough money to fund a 3-year project or a 2-year project. We haven't funded any 3 years, I know, but a 2-year project, and we jump over you to fund the one we could afford. So it's sort of a defensive strategy to put in the one, you know, fund me 1 year if that's all I can get, but otherwise we fund generally, we haven't gone out to 3, we've done 2 years. So I would suggest breaking it up so that in the off chance you're the last one on the list, that it's still there.
Okay, this next one's related. Are there recommendations and limits on the start date and length of contracts?
There are not, but that's the other thing I would think of. Because the money takes so long to get there, especially if you're doing a contractor or you're going to have to hire somebody, push the projected dates out, because a lot of people didn't get their funding till later in the fall and overshot their deadlines, and then they had to, you know, do some paperwork to get those corrected. So I'd say push out those deadlines for deliverables a little bit, because how long it's going to take the money to get to you.
Okay. Can a tribe partner with the state, a co-manager?
Yeah, and actually that would help you in your ranking because it would show cooperation. So somebody else would be getting information. They would be providing in-kind to the project. So yeah, there's 2 supplemental, you know, boosters to your program right there. So even though we don't fund states, the fact that the state would have information and you would have information, that's sort of good governance. So yes, we support that.
There have been a few questions about a match. Is there a match required? What is the match amount? Can you say what the minimum amount of a match would be?
There's no match required. So, but it is it does look good if you have a match. So, you know, throw in that staff time, you know, for managers that are already on staff. That's tribal budget going to the project. Throw them in there. But no, there's no match. So you can have one that the BIA funds 100% and that you don't have any staff. You could contract the whole thing out. So the only weakness so in-kind helps, sharing, you know, doing something cooperatively across borders with other tribes, that kind of thing helps. And then capacity building. So if all the money goes to a contractor and they produce a plan, they drop it off in your door, and then they go away, then we don't consider that capacity building for the tribe. You know, if you have staff that you hired to do it or your own staff, you know, worked on these plans, that's information that they've absorbed, they're able to use later on. That's capacity building. So there's advantages to doing stuff in-house.
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
1 second. Tribes can also use like these awards as like matching for being competitive for other federal programs as well that often require a match.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So it's hard to line up your awards. If, you know, grant writers that are on this call, it's hard to, you know, we've got one deadline, somebody else has another. But 638 money, once it goes to the tribe, it loses its federal character. So if you've got a required match from another federal entity for doing a plan, you know, climate, this has to be climate unless it's ocean and coastal, but if you have other funding that you can get for climate, this can be the match against it. And if you guys need that legal reference, then shoot us an email.
Okay, next, can you clarify the climate liaison solicitation anticipated award date? I'm assuming the 60 to 90-day review process applies to these as well, right?
This isn't like 638 contracting, so that does not apply in this case. We you know, we are in the process of evaluations, and we you know, will make decisions and you know, announce things once we have made that. But at this point, we still haven't completed evaluation, so I can't say much in terms of the decisions just yet. But those are in process.
Okay.
We're really good at 638 contracting, and you know how slow we said we are at that. So imagine commercial contracting with tribal organizations is kind of unique, and so administratively there's not a template that's been done that we just check boxes. So it's going a little slower than we'd hoped.
Okay, next question. Do tribal organizations need resolutions from each tribe, or does one resolution from the tribal leaders who are the board of directors of the United South and Eastern Tribes Incorporated suffice?
So if USET is a 638 entity, then a resolution will work for them, right? If they have that capacity, any tribal consortium, if they have 638, then a resolution from their governing body does it. But if you're doing something that's sort of cooperative, multiple governments, then you want at least support from those other ones, like, you know, we're going to do the planning, we're going to do all the work, and then they're going to get information. You want support to show that they want that. If the money is going to move to the other tribes in a consortium, you're all going to do a plan together, but each taking pieces of it, then we'd need a resolution from each one, because that's what's needed for 630 contracting and to show the tribes on board.
Okay, the next one, confused about what BIA calls supplemental monitoring. Can we do a fish field survey or count to add more information to consider RE escapement management?
So this is the thing. So if your program should be doing fish counts anyway, then that's program money. So what is it that climate is? What is it about your survey that you're going to get climate information that's going to help you make a decision? I shouldn't say climate information. Trend information that's going to make you help you make a management decision. that considers climate change. So is there information that you didn't have before? So the example in fisheries, at least in the Midwest, where I come from, is lake temperature. So we stock cold water species in cold lakes and warm water species in warm lakes. Well, climate's causing lakes to become warmer and warmer over time, and those cold water species aren't doing as well in certain lakes. So fish managers have been checking water temperature forever, and that's when they decide to make a change in stocking. They don't need funding to do that. They've already to figure out that monitoring is important. They've already done that. They've sort of absorbed that climate concept in. But in other cases, what's the indicator you would track? What's the trend you would track that would cause you to make a decision to adjust your management to make your system more resilient? That's the part we support. Information that you never gathered before that you need to start gathering. So we support it for a little while until the program absorbs it and does it with their program dollars. Or research into what an indicator would be that would help you make a decision. And no one submitted a proposal like that yet, so I can't describe what it is. But that we'd be open to. So if you think back to the original slide that said that, I have to click in the box for it to work, that managers, we do everything this climate money supports getting information to managers so that they can change from thinking about the way things were done in the past to considering what climate risks they're facing and how to adjust their projects. Doing baseline surveys is something your program did in the past. Figuring out a trend where you're going to make a decision that changes how you do your projects in the future, that's the information we're shooting for.
Okay, here's another question going back to the match questions. Does federal to non-federal matter, and what are your thoughts on letters of support?
Federal, non-federal doesn't matter. So we're not, we're asking for the match to show that there's commitment and there's more cooperation going on. It's not just, you at your desk figuring out one thing, that this information is going to spread far and wide. So we don't require that the match be a certain federal, non-federal, tribal, it's all the same to us. Is it somebody else helping you? Is it other people, across your borders with the same ecosystem getting the information? That's all good. Is it other tribes? Is another federal entity supporting this, and then that information will support other managers? All that adds to it, and our dollars go forward farther, and your information goes farther and helps other managers in that larger ecosystem that we're trying to maintain. And I talked so much I forgot the rest of the question.
It was just about letters of support and federal to non-federal.
Yeah, so letters of support, yeah, those are great. I mean, if you've got 6 people and we get 4 letters of support, it doesn't really change that. It's showing that the project has wide support, and there's more people than that want that information and want to go together on it.
Okay,
the next. They don't. They help, but you don't have to pile them up.
Okay, the next one is someone just wanting a clarification, and they gave an example. If you currently have a project today for $100,000 and you apply for another grant this year, does that mean you can only apply for $150,000 for the new proposal? Does it have to all add up to $250,000?
No, I'm sorry I misspoke. So each project has a limit of $250,000. So you can't break up a $300,000 project into 2 to fund it so you can get the grants in, 2 category 2s. But if it really is a different project, you can submit 10 different projects. I would prefer you didn't, that you focus in on one thing that moves, adaptation planning that gets the whole tribe moving forward, and then over time, then you'd know to go together on vulnerability assessments, start working with your partners at a university for long-term research for vulnerability, that kind of stuff. But no, there's not. That 250 limit is per project.
So if they had already been awarded last year 150 or 100,000, they can only apply for 150,000 more?
Right. So if they're expanding the, if they're doing the same project and they say we underestimated and our contracting costs are higher and it took us, all the things that trip somebody up when you're just having a really bad day. We hired somebody, they left, we hired somebody again, the same project, we now need some more money. That's got the limit, so that's all you would ask for. But there was an example the other day on a youth program where they had money for it and then they were going to expand it. If it's new work, then describe what the old work is, and then describe, we're expanding it to other. This example is expanding to other reservations. It really is the other reservations that are getting the new project. So, so that's the distinction. Is it the same project and you're just asking for more money, or is it really a different one? Are you working on a plan for our vulnerability assessment for different species, or is it that you misestimated on your first one?
Okay, the next one is going back to the coastal definition. Are tribes in the Great Lakes Basin included in the coastal definition?
Yeah, the Great Lakes is a coast, federally recognized coast.
Okay, the next question, are resolutions that give general managers and secretary treasurers the authority to submit proposals and retain receipt of awards eligible resolutions?
So this question has come up from Navajo in the past, and so that's their system of government. They, and any other tribe that the council doesn't meet often enough for you to have a resolution, so they've given you some other tool to do that. But in general, if your tribe has the ability to do resolutions, then we want to see that they actually support doing climate change. So if you think about how you get an organization to absorb sort of a new concept, whether it's safety, emergency management, climate integration, all that, you really need leadership to be on board. You need sort of momentum from all the other programs to really start moving and, on a climate adaptation plan for a whole tribe. So that's the support we want to see. But if your tribal government doesn't have the ability to do that, then yes, we will accept whatever your tribal government uses.
Okay, the next one is regarding that slide that had the CESUs. The person wrote, I noticed a graphic on the slide from CESU, including Hawaii and Pacific Islanders. So given BIA covers mainland and Alaska tribes, is there any role for these other island folks, or is that off the table this time around?
Yeah, sorry for the confusion there. There are 17 CESUs, and BIA is joining 14 of those. So we are just joining the ones where federally recognized tribes are. So that does exclude Hawaii, the Pacific Islands. We are not joining that one. The Piedmont South Atlantic coast we have not joined, and the Chesapeake watershed we have not joined because at the time we didn't have any federally recognized tribes in those units. That might change for
Texas, no.
Oh yeah, that might change, as tribes become fairly recognized, as I think is the case now in the Chesapeake watershed with Pamunkey. So we wanted to make sure and build up partnerships in those areas, units that do have federally recognized tribes But sorry for the confusion on the map there. That's all of them. That's all 17. Currently, we are just joining 14. We're in the process of that because it is a process for all of them. And currently, we are members of 8, and we are set to join the other 6 of those 14 by the end of the year.
Well, the one thing I would add on that is for us to be members in this co-op agreement, we have to actually cough up just under $2 grand for each of these units, so it's not cheap. So if tribes don't partner with universities, and there's 3 tribal universities, colleges and universities in it now, if we don't see that partnership over time, then we'll probably start backing out of this. It doesn't have to be just climate. Any research your program does, you know, there's tree ring research in the Southwest, and there's other places we could get research for the, you know, if the BIA is funding the research, then we can be part of the co-op agreement.
Yeah, invasive species, water resources, restoration, archaeological, anthropological. It can be in the social sciences as well. The expertise is generally more in the natural resources, but they do branch out a bit into the social sciences and history, natural history as well.
We've only done it once, so you know it's a process we're just learning, and tribes haven't, and BIA hasn't learned how to use it yet. So we see it as great potential, but if nobody ever wants to use it, then we won't spend the money on it in the future.
Okay, next question. If a tribe has collaborated on projects with multiple tribes in the past, but now it's time to move forward solo, will that past experience be accounted for?
When you write your proposal, it should be very clear. So, you know, I don't know, we don't rank that, you know, you're better able to achieve this because of your past experience. I guess I would see it showing up as a very focused proposal that you know you're going to get some bang for your buck out of. So, but no, there aren't extra points for you being farther down the road.
Okay, the next one's about the category of for offering trainings. If submitting a proposal for providing regional climate change adaptation workshops, would assisting participants actually develop their plans after the workshop be considered implementation, or is this allowable? Would this be 2 different categories?
So the training part is to just deliver the training. So it would be 2 different categories. So I think you would want to submit 2, because if you didn't get the training, there aren't as many training awards because we want to fund tribes doing adaptation planning. So the training awards, if you weren't to get that, you wouldn't want it to torpedo the adaptation plan. It would advance you on the adaptation plan, but you wouldn't want it to undermine you. So I would say do it as 2 different awards. I think they both sound competitive, so I'd go that route.
Okay, another question, does the $250,000 max for projects also include funding from other sources, including BIA, or is that maximum specific to this BIA Tribal Climate Resilience Program?
Huh. I hadn't thought of it that way. Because funding is
our portion.
Yeah, we've ranked it as our portion, but I'm just looking at the announcement to make sure that the lawyers didn't change it. And if there's any lawyers on the phone, I apologize for throwing you under the bus. It's just our portion. So
okay.
You wouldn't want to have the match stuff listed in there. No, that's a benefit.
Okay, here's another question. We have an impact and adaptation grant at about $157,000. Can we then apply for the remainder of that funding up to $250,000 and also a marine spatial planning grant for $250,000, or is it $250,000 for all categories?
So marine spatial planning is what the intent of the oceans and coastal money was for. And so I assume that a climate adaptation plan really isn't a marine spatial. Marine spatial plan is, for those that don't know, it's all the partners that use the ocean, or as many as will come together, getting together and saying what their uses are and trying to just collectively, collaboratively avoid impacts to each other. So that really doesn't have anything, I don't want to say it's unrelated to climate change, but it's two different programs completely. So no, they're not, they don't restrict each other. You can apply in each category. And then going to the beginning of the question, could you push back up to 250 for your current project? And you could, but you would want to describe what the extra work is that you're going to do, right? So we're not going to fund the same thing twice. So you'd want to make a very clear statement as to, what the project is that, what the new funding is going to go to. That's just not the old, what the old funding said it would cover.
Okay, are letters of support from partnerships required, specifically in the context of hosting a training with other organizations?
I'm trying to think if they're not funded, they're just hosting. I mean, we've always gotten them in the past, but I don't think that we require them. So I'm actually flipping through our own documents. So I'm going to say no, they're not required.
Okay, the next one, can this funding be used for a tribal consortium? I have an idea to get tribes together for tribal climate change meetings in the Southwest.
So a consortium, meaning it's hard to ask this person for a definition, so I'm going to answer both questions. So the funding's for federally recognized tribes. If you get a consortium that's informal, like a partnership, or you're going to create a consortium that's not the arm of the government, it's not 638 consortium that has its own governance. Yes, that's allowed, and consortiums can apply if they have 638 status on their own. So if you're a tribe and you're going to work with partnerships and it's other tribes, but the funding's going to pass through you to do this project, then you can pull it off as a single tribe. And if it's a consortium that already has 638 status, then they can do it also.
Okay, the next question I can answer, I think. Is there any specific climate change adaptation planning workshops for Midwest lands or tribes that live here? ITEP is planning to offer a training in northern Wisconsin in July, and we are also planning a training for Nebraska City, Nebraska in September. Next question, can travel costs be included in planning categories if we need travel support for planning meetings?
Yep, and so the decision is it part of the actual project, or is it something that really stands alone? So I wouldn't group them together if they really stand alone. If it's your climate adaptation person who's doing your plan, like coordinating your plan, and if they don't get trained, if they don't get hired, they don't need to be trained, yeah, throw it into that one. But if it's your staff that would need that information anyway, keep them separate. Okay.
We still have some questions, but we're getting lower down on our list. The next one is, I'm still a little confused about Category 4 and if projects are funded as it says monitoring is limited. If we were wanting to do near-shore water quality monitoring to gain baseline data to assist with ocean and coastal management planning, i.e. equipment and personnel for monitoring, is that something that would be considered for funding, or is that considered the implementation of a project and be denied funding?
For Category 4 ocean and coastal, that would be considered part of the project. And then that means I made a mistake on the slides and typed it in because I'm used to typing it in for climate. So.
Okay, the next one, can we include a potential consultant organization and deliverable as a line item, or do we have to parse it out according to different staff within the consulting organization?
It can be a line item. You'd want to describe what they're going to do so we can evaluate whether it's, how efficient it is.
Okay, next, what are the reporting requirements?
So there's the 638 reporting requirements, which you'll get, the Tribal Self-Governance Office will get with the contract, and those are standard 638 stuff. So I'm just going to add the part that our program asks for. So we ask the Office of Self-Governance to negotiate with the tribes to put in that they will report within 10 days after the quarter on progress and updates, and that's so that we can roll up. We have to report to the White House, the people who fund the tribal support and made sure it was in the budget. We have to tell them we're making good progress. So we need your stories to tell us that. So we ask the tribes add that into their compact negotiations when they take the money, and most have. And then we ask 638 whether it's in the contract or not, because we have 12 people to coordinate with that, to please do that. So if you send a report to the regional point of contact by the 10th of the month, I get it by the 15th. We roll it up by the 22nd. Everybody's happy, and we keep our money coming. Thanks.
Okay, is there a NEPA component to this funding?
I would think, it's most of it except ocean coastal is planning, so I think it's categorically excluded. That would I expect, I'm not a NEPA specialist, so I think I would check on that first.
Will you consider updates to previous ocean and coastal management plans?
Yeah. I mean, you describe what you have and what the new work is. So yes, it's a new project. I mean, yeah, you're expanding a previous plan. So yes.
Okay. Next one. If I understand correctly, I cannot apply for more than one category if I apply for capacity building. Can capacity building include travel?
Yes, and that's a point I hadn't thought about. So yes. So we think of capacity building as sort of that pre-planning, pre-proposal development. So tribes figuring out what they want to do. Is it a vulnerability assessment? Is it Category 2 climate adaptation? This is on the climate side, not ocean and coastal. So yeah, if you're going to hire somebody to sort this through and sort of survey the landscape and figure out what other tribes have done, yeah, they could go travel on that. And if you didn't get the Category 9, you wouldn't have that person to do the travel. So that fits. Does it exclude you asking for Category 3 travel support for staff? I don't know how we're going to announce this, but I would say no, it doesn't exclude. I mean, if you really have staff that needs to go for something else, and you're trying to figure out whether to do a tribal-wide or multi-tribe vulnerability assessment, I think those are two different things, and Category 9 would not exclude that. So I'm going to write down that it's not, Category 9 does not exclude ocean and coastal. It shouldn't affect your ranking at all. Sorry, not ocean. I'm sorry. Does not exclude travel capacity building.
Okay, can unused travel award money be put into a no-cost extension?
You have to talk to it. Yes, it should be, and you have to talk to your regional point of contact to just get that moved over. But yeah, that's the thing that happens the most often with our travel money is people miss the training or somebody can't go and they substitute another training later.
Okay, can this grant be used to collect information from elders on how to properly store native foods because climate is changing and our food chain is slowly being affected?
Um, so on that specific thing, so climate's related to everything. So you want to avoid proposals that say, I want to do this project and I know climate's going to affect buildings, infrastructure, all these other things. So think back to the management, how do we inform managers? Now, elders and traditional knowledge does inform climate or managers making decisions. And we funded, last year we funded one in Maine for interviewing elders about past conditions, past uses. So I would avoid writing it specifically for, that one seems pretty specific and it doesn't talk about sort of how you would gather information that you would use to make your adaptation plans to be more efficient. So I guess I would broaden it a little bit. It might do better. Go ahead.
There were some interesting proposals last year with youth, and going on interviewing elders is part of their experience and understanding climate change impacts in their community and getting engaged. So just it could, because that probably wouldn't fit under necessarily like a strategic planning category.
So I don't want to be restrictive, but it seems like that one's really specific for goal just on food storage. So climate, so gathering baseline. So it might do well. Frankie.
Okay, almost done. Let's see. So this is just wanting some clarification again. Just to be clear, a single proposal can have categories 1, 2, and 3 included, just clearly separated, but may not exceed the $250,000 in total.
So we'd like it to be submitted as 3 different proposals. It can have the same resolution. But if you think about our panels review them separately. So if you send them in a separate email, well, this goes to the problems we've had in the past. We had a proposal come in that had 2 on there, and when we distributed them, nobody could tell that there were 2 there. So it didn't get reviewed by the second panel. So we really need them to come in. We get a heck of a lot of these, and we really need them to come in their own email so that we process that separately. If we have to break it out, there's a chance that the information won't get broken out, or it won't get broken out in the way you want it. So if you could package them up as a separate proposal, even if it has the same resolution, that would be very helpful.
Okay, and then here's another one asking just for some more clarification about a response you gave. I asked about the nearshore water quality monitoring, and I couldn't understand the response. Did you say that it would be considered for funding or that it would not?
It would be.
Would be, okay.
I guess.
For ocean and coastal.
For ocean and coastal,
category.
Yeah.
And somebody just asked, I said that this has been really helpful, the webinar and Q&A session, and just asking if they'll have the ability to play back the recorded meeting. And yes, ITEP has been recording this, and we will be posting the recording on our climate change webinars webpage. A couple more questions just came in. For ongoing proposal technical assistance, who do you prefer we utilize, ITEP, BIA, or regional people?
Well, you can ask. I mean, we're the ones that have the proposals, and we rank them. And so, no, it's a BIA question for this, but technical assistance in general, any of the resources on the resources guide. So BIA has resources, ITEP has specialties that we don't have. Forest Service has ecosystem forest specialties that none of us have. So we would be happy to point you, and the resource guide does that. If I get to the right page, the resource guide does that. So yes, any federal entity and an NGO.
Okay, and then how many proposals were denied last year because there wasn't enough money?
So this seems like a really easy question to answer, and I can tell you the numbers. So 31 were not funded, but there was more money last year because we had carried over. We had some issues getting the youth announcement didn't get out, and the ocean and coastal didn't get out in time, so we actually had double that funding. So we moved more money last year than we had in the past. So you can't really use last year's numbers for the funding side and how many got funded. I mean, we can tell you the numbers, but it's not realistic to project to this year. So on average, we funded 60 proposals a year out of the $10 million budget, but last year we funded 101. That includes the travel proposals. I mean, you can get a lot of $4,000 travel proposals funded.
Okay, and then does the overview screen itemize actual resources available to tribes to accomplish our goals under this grant?
I don't understand that.
What's the overview screen?
I'm not sure. This was actually typed in early in the webinar, and maybe it's referring to the slide that you have up now, the TCR resource guide. I'm not sure.
Maybe if
This one?
oh, tribal. Let's see the overview.
Can you read the question again, Sue?
Yeah, let me find that. Does the overview screen itemize actual resources available to tribes to accomplish our goals under this grant?
No. Well, this overview slide, if this is what this person's talking about, just says the category. So maybe shoot us an email.
That overview slide is about like our entire program, the funding and the technical support. Not specific just to the climate awards that we've been talking about today, or in these questions.
So if you send an email to funding.climate@bia.gov, that's where we keep all the questions, so we know how to answer these questions next year. So we can answer from there. It's still Rachel and I answering them.
Okay, I believe we've gone through all the questions. I apologize if I did miss one somewhere, but I think I got them all. A question I have is if people have questions after this webinar, which are about to end, who should they contact?
So contact either one of us, but the easy one for questions on this, so we can capture them, is funding.climate@bia.gov. Where the awards are, where the proposal is going to go, we answer questions from that email.
Okay, we are finished. That was a whole lot of questions. Thank you, Sean and Rachel, for your time to answer all of these. And do you have any closing comments or thoughts before we end the webinar?
No, I appreciate how hard it is to listen to this and have specific questions that we're not quite able to answer. So feel free to ask, and we'll try and answer them all. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you both, and thank you everyone who joined the webinar. And with that, we are ending the webinar. So have a good rest of the day. Goodbye.
Bye.